Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I am so excited for today's guest. But before I introduce him, a couple quick announcements. First, head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find a wealth of information there. You'll find ways to connect with my amazing guest. You'll find ways to connect with me online. You will find ways to sponsor the podcast. You'll find free downloads, courses, coaching, lots of little giveaways and freebies. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by people from the film The Secret, Michael Beckwith, Bob Doyle, Marcy Shimoff. It was also endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. Sounds kind of weird that a Tribune newspaper has a podcast network, but we are doing massive things in the personal development realm. We have an event, either live or in person, pretty much once a month, spearheaded by Tony Robbins, former EVP of production for 18 years. We have incredible speakers. I was just on stage with Les Brown, Dr. Joe Vitale, Sharon Lechter, Jim Quick. So come be a part of what we're doing. All the other podcasts are amazing. Let's help change and rise up humanity. All right. So with me today, I have Brian Seth Hurst. And Brian wasn't in his university's philosophy class the day metaphysics was defined. Little did he know that discovering what lies beyond the visible world would become a lifelong avocation. So we are going to get along really well. Balancing the study of life with the business of life has led Brian to describe himself as a practical man. In 2012, he released his first edition of Whole. In response to readers who wanted to explore the book's concepts and insights more deeply, he has now created the Whole Companion Workbook, featuring exercises designed to complement each chapter, drawn from his work of over 40 years as an intuitive counselor and coach with thousands of clients. A well-regarded international entertainment professional and prominent figure in the world of media, storytelling, and immersive experiences, he is known for his work as a producer, strategist, and writer, with a focus on pioneering new forms of content and storytelling techniques. Awesome. You sound amazing. I'm so happy you're here, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. When I hear that played back, sometimes you just keep doing what you're doing and you don't really know what you've done. And then someone reads an introduction and you go, oh yeah, I did do that. Yeah. So
totally. It's always interesting to hear your own bio read back to you.
It is. Especially if you didn't write it. So
totally. Cool. So I always start off my episodes the same way. It's the only question I pre-plan. And that is, I'd like to know what your origin story is. So what set you on this path to become a metapractical man?
Wow. You know what? I've been asked that question before, but this is the first time I actually thought about a different answer.
Cool.
So believe it or not, I have this giant scar on the top of my head, and I was hit on the head by an iron grid gate that kind of lacerated my scalp. Oh. And I had my first near-death experience. I came to discover years later that a lot of people who were intuitive were hit on the head in adolescence. And so having that experience and hovering above my body, because I was bleeding out, hovering above my body, it was only my mother, and she burst into the emergency room and fell on my stomach and screamed, my son, my son. And I just went right back into my body. But I'd always been intuitive as a kid, but I think that event sort of made me aware that there was more to life than what I was seeing. Now, that to me led to, okay, who am I supposed to be? And the only cue I was getting was, my father was actually in the entertainment. Both my parents were in the entertainment industry, but my father, never having been to college, he wanted me to be a professional, either a doctor or a lawyer. And so coming out of that, it was like, well, that identity is one thing. And then the other thing is, what do I do with all of this intuition? And what do I do with all of this stuff that I just get and know? Do I shut it down? And actually had dreamt the deaths of both my uncles when I was 12, exactly as they were going to happen in the future. So actually, once that happened, Chris, I kind of shut it down. And then when I was in my late 20s, it all came rushing back. Because I went to visit a psychic. And, there's a great story. She wanted me to do psychic readings because she was not available to do this party. And she said, "You can do this." I said, "I have no idea how to do this." And she said, "It's easy. Just close your eyes and say what you see." So I went to the party, had a little sign, psychic readings, on a little table, and the party started at 8 and nothing happened. No one came over to see me. But 15 minutes before it was over, this woman came over and she sat down, a New Yorker, because when I was in New York, and she says, "My name is Judy, read me." And so I did what Linda Waldron, who was the psychic, told me to do. I just closed my eyes and said what I saw. And when I was finished, I opened my eyes and the look of shock was on her face, and she just screamed, "Garrels, Garrels, you have to talk to this man." And that's how the whole intuitive thing started. But I never got off the show business path and got into writing and production, and I had my first real job with a paycheck at 40 in the entertainment industry. And I had these two separate tracks running. One was I tried to stop doing intuitive work. I tried to stop doing readings and coaching, but people kept calling. And I was like, well, if they're calling, it must be I'm meant to do this. And then on the other side, here I am, this entertainment executive who's essentially traveling the world as a strategist, as a producer. My joke is I got to see the entire world on other people's money. And then I was part of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and I was running for chairman of the Emmys. I had been vice chairman. And the election was tied the first ballot, tied the second ballot, and then they postponed it for a month. And in that month, the opposition research came out, because I had done television with Moon Zappa and I had done television on FX, their show Breakfast Time, but I had done it as an intuitive. And so this email went out, "Do you want this sideshow circus psychic to be your chairperson?" And I still only lost by 1 vote, but that was like, uh-oh, the jig is up. and I have to be this whole person. Thus the title of the book made perfect sense to me. And then I just sort of went with it from there, and I kind of surrendered to what was happening in terms of one life was entertainment, but I wasn't going to be in the closet anymore about my spirituality and about the gifts that I felt came from divine, from God, and that you don't get a gift and not give it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was working with Olivia Newton-John, and I had a children's book with her, but I went to write her show with her when she came back after live performance, and she said to me, well, one morning, I said, "Why now after 9 years?" And she said, "Well, one morning I woke up and I thought, God gave me this voice. I need to use it." And so that totally resonated with me. So that's kind of the origin story on the overarch.
I love the story that you were just thrown into that party as the psychic at the table. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing all of that.
You're welcome.
Did you ever blend the two worlds, write TV or a film or produce anything about the spirituality side, or have you kept those very separate?
Yeah, I kept them very separate. I mean, now it's a different story. Now when I write stories, I'm looking to the future. I think, Chris, I wasn't really clear on my purpose. And I think, to be honest, I think my career in the entertainment industry was ego driven. And I think it was approval. I call it the burden of proof. I think it was approval driven as well, because, son wants his father to be proud. And if he can say, oh, my son did this and my son did that. Sure. But it wasn't grounded in spiritual principle. But I think it needed to happen, obviously, exactly as it happened. But now, you know what? It wasn't so much of what I did, but how I did it. So I did do it with spirituality in my work. In other words, the principles, the values of integrity and honorability, truth, and all that, that's how I worked as a producer. I learned everyone's names. I wanted to work in the industry with kindness, in an industry that often throws other people under the bus. I wanted to work with that kind of integrity. So it wasn't so much that I told spiritual stories or was part of spiritual stories. I was part of some stories that really did some good in the world, but it was the way, I think it was the way I did it, which was based in spiritual principles.
I really appreciate that answer, because I don't know, I've been having this kind of thought lately, and I'll try and like put it into words that really resonates with what you just said. It doesn't really like matter like what you do in the world. Like we all have a purpose, we all have gifts, but it's like just like being here, like you're living out your purpose, right? Like we are all here for a reason, and we're here to learn and grow and have experiences as humans and kind of be in this school. But just like by being and like the way that you are and like the way that you spread love and are kind to others, like that's kind of enough sometimes for soul growth, right? You don't need to be like this huge spiritual teacher. So I appreciate that you just said a message that I've been like thinking about a lot recently, because I think that that's important for listeners to hear too.
You know, I have shied away from being that spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
I think because maybe I thought my ego would take over, or because maybe I thought more would be expected of me than I was able to deliver. I'm not sure why. So when Whole first came out, I actually, 12 years ago or however long ago, actually was a publisher. But the publisher wanted me to stand in front of the book. They wanted to build me up, and I wanted the book to speak for itself. And so I ended up publishing that book myself. And you know, through the years, it was like, you're absolutely right. I mean, I had to nail what my purpose was for myself, which is to connect and engage authentically in collaboration with God and inspire. And by inspire, I mean for people to be able to recognize what they can do, what they can contribute, how they can be in the world. So whether I do it in writing a book, whether I do it as an executive, whether I do it as a performer, because I've returned to singing and performing after 40 years and put my heart in it. And that's where I think it most comes out, because I don't think I'm like performing. I think I'm just sharing. So you're right. You know, purpose to me is the context for what you do. And it can be expressed in a myriad of ways. If I could paint, I might be able to connect and inspire and engage authentically painting, but I can't. So there are other things that I do that it is my intention that it is on purpose.
Yeah. That's I don't know. It's a good way to go through life, I think.
Took me a while to get it.
So would you mind just kind of like running through some of the main points that you kind of touch on in your book Whole, just so readers are kind of caught up a little bit?
The title of your show, Change Your Mind, it's so right on.
So you're meant to come on the show.
Yeah, because, you know, that idea that the one power that the superpower that people have, in my opinion, is the ability to change your mind, is the ability to look at your beliefs and see how those beliefs create those realities. And if you're not getting the reality that you desire or that is authentic to you, then change the belief, transform the belief.
Beautiful.
So in Whole, it goes through many different things, like the environment, your relationship to money. The whole story of the book was that I had a television show crash and burn, not once but twice, and I asked what I should do, and I was sitting in an airport in Moline, Illinois, because I was living half the time there and half in LA, and I heard, give us 30 days, and at the end of 30 days you will have a book, and the name of the book is Whole. And so all I did was take dictation for 30 days, and the joke was my life completely blew up between the writing of the book and the publishing of the book. My mother passed away. I had a 20-year relationship end. My business was a mess. And the joke here was that the book didn't come from me, it came for me. And so many of the things, and I hold the book in front of me because as a channeled work, I don't actually remember the chapters, but it talks about connectedness and source. And then each chapter, you know, people, this was my experience. People, I read a book and they go, wow, that was great. And then I put it down and then I try and employ the principles. And then I find, oh, well, I have to go back and read the book again. And so I would go back and I would read Creative Mind by Ernest Holmes or a Marianne Williamson book, but there was no way to like go deeper. And so the workbook made a lot of sense because it was a way that the chapters could be the introduction to something, and then the exercises could allow you to go deeper into the discovery. And so one of my favorite exercises was one I was using in the coaching program that just fell right into the book, which is the belief grid. And it asks you to write the 10 most influential people in your life and leave a space for the 11th. And then across the top are money, family, creativity, sexuality, work. And if the first one is your mother, well, what did your mother believe about family? And I tell people, take your first response that you hear. So my mother believed that family was everything, and my mother did believe family was everything. What did my mother think about money? My mother thought there will always be enough, contrary to my father, who thought there would never be enough. And so then you fill out all of these for the 10 most influential people, and you put it away for 2 days, and you come back with a highlighter and you highlight those beliefs that you have taken on, that you are living from. And I call that the human operating system. And you can make changes to that operating system in the 11th row, which is what are the beliefs that you would like to have or that you would like to employ.
Thanks for walking us through that. Like, what a great takeaway that people can do. And I'm going to try it myself. And I think it's so important because we get our lens and our belief system from the opinions of the adults we grew up around, like cultural conditioning, the people who were around us as a child, you know? So I think that that's a really cool exercise to help people uncover.
You might get them from the media. I mean, you know, there's so many people so many things to people, whatever, that want to tell you what to think.
Right.
I mean, the whole advertising industry, it's talked about in the book, the whole advertising industry is built on you're not enough. You know, you need this in order to be better. You need this in order to be enough. And so there's a message that's coming in with every commercial, which is you need this to be somebody, you know, and that's kind of scary. And that input, that the messages that we get, whether it's from social media or from advertising or whatnot, they can just, I literally, Kris, today, I had to shut off the world. I said, if I'm going to be with Kris today, I really need to get centered because there's so much that grabs our attention. Right. Not just our to-do list, but everything that's happening. Yeah. And it was like, boy, you can either be at the effect of that, or you can be at the source of your response to that. And I have to practice what I preach. And so I was. So true. And I got something else today, which is when the world is in the state that it's in, and you're concerned and you're worried, be of service. And I'm going to write that article later tonight. It's be of service. It's like, go volunteer someplace. Go volunteer at a shelter. Go volunteer at a food bank. Go volunteer someplace. Be of service. Give. Because that will be fulfilling. And you will know that you are doing something instead of sitting and for me, I'm a double Pisces. So, you know, I feel everything. And it was like, what do I do with these feelings? Well, first, yes, I write them out. I follow my own advice in the book. I journal. I write them out. And then it's like, okay, great. What can I do? How can I be of service today? Where can I put the gifts that I have? Where can I put my attention? And so I thought of that today after I came out of this meditation, which is, you know, the way to handle this is to serve, is to give, is to be, you know, take care of yourself. Yes, first, self-care, self-love, absolutely. But then give.
I really appreciate that advice because You know, a lot of what I talk about and teach is that, you know, the universe kind of works like this Facebook algorithm. Whatever you get like emotional about, it's like, oh, they like that. I'm going to send a little bit more of that their way. So there's a lot of people out there trying to like fight for change. But to quote Greg Braden, I love this quote, it's like angry people can't create a peaceful world, right? You have to become that which you want to spread. Like your inner world becomes your outer world. And I know you know this, just kind of like reiterating like what you're saying in another way.
I need to be reminded just as much as anybody else.
Yeah, but it's instead of like getting highly emotional about what's going on in the world, because if you look out at the world, there's always something to get angry about. There's always something to get upset about, right?
Fear.
But you control your reaction or your response, as you said. So instead of getting emotional, which is going to just kind of put that out into the quantum field and like send you and the world more things to feel that way about, it's like, take action, like do something, be the change that you want to be, right? Or that you want to see. So I think that's really good advice. And also like turn off the damn news. Like my mentor says CNN stands for constantly negative news. And that goes for all the stations, right?
But, you know, I think it's okay to have that emotional response, to have that initial, because you're feeling something.
Sure.
And that feeling is going to lead you, if you allow it, and you're larger than your feelings, it's going to lead you to the next place, which is, okay, let me journal these feelings, get them out of my head, and let me come back to center. And I have something else, a visual that I use. So I say to people, if you're going to fight for something, here's what happens. Your fist is closed. You can't receive anything when your fist is closed. If I'm fighting for this, there is no way I can get it. But if I open my hand and my heart, I might be able to ask for it or to get it. And so the fighting is based for me, it's based in my fear, it's based in my worry, it's based in my ego, all of it. It's based in that I was taught to fight. That in my case, a man is taught to fight.
Right.
And so that is the automatic response. And so I have to dial that back. I have to go, oh, wait a minute. Look at me. I'm all tight and I'm ready to do battle. Stop, breathe, center, 3 deep breaths. Let that go. You haven't been attacked. You've taken something personally that probably isn't about you, regardless of what that person has just said, probably not about you. So let that go and gain insight. In other words, in that moment, like today, someone made a comment about something I was doing. It was just a text back and forth. And it was upsetting. Yeah. And I thought, why would she say something like that? And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. Something might be going on with this person that I cannot see. And it's resulted in this reaction or response to, and I was merely asking a question. So it was like, okay, what is the moment of insight here? What can I intuit, actually? If I can't ask them what's going on with them, what can I intuit? Because, and I love this in Sharon Salzberg's book, Loving Kindness, which is about Buddhist practice. There's no right or wrong, black or white. There is suffering and there is not suffering. And when I look at that, I'm going, okay, this person might be suffering and I know nothing about what they're suffering. But you know, the old hurt people. Right. That might be going on. So let me get some insight. And again, what we're talking about is instead of reacting, what can my response be? So sorry, did I get off subject there?
No. I love everything you shared. Like we're so aligned, and I'm over here like yes. And you're so smart. I just want to back up a few times and say like when we were talking about getting upset about what's going on in the world, like, and you said, but it's okay to feel those things. Like, yes, I totally agree with you. But then you like move through them like you did, right? Like you don't hold on to that. And to like your friend, like everything you said is right. It's like people come from their own pain and their own fear, right? There's this amazing, I don't know if you have ever read A Course in Miracles, but...
Oh, of course.
Okay, you're going to love this
I'm never upset for the reasons I think.
Yes, and one of my favorite lines, I love that, but yes, one of my favorite lines is every act is either an expression of love or a call for love, right? And and I have goosebumps just saying it, because it's like, if you can go through life that way. And it's work, right? It's like, it takes work. Like, this is not easy, but like, if you can be like, okay, this is a call for love. This person is hurting in some way. It just shifts your perspective.
It does. I think for me, I can only speak for myself. It has been a particular challenge to get to that place because I was sexually abused as a kid.
So was I.
My trust is completely, I can build a wall so fast to protect myself. And when I feel that is a reaction to something, if I feel I'm getting into that space where I'm not safe, then I may take that as a personal attack, or I may attack back, or I immediately may go to protect myself and shut down. And I have had to notice, there are the bricks. I'm building the wall. Bye-bye. And stop that from happening. Notice that it's happening and saying, you know what? That was then. This is now. Take care of that little child inside and say, I'm going to keep you safe. This is safe. We know better now. Let's just look objectively, see what the circumstances are, and see how we can respond while not denying those feelings and that need to be calmed or soothed. Very important. Compassion for that child within that experienced all that stuff, to not say, don't feel anything. That was it. Don't do, to not dismiss it, but to allow it and move forward anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the same past as you do. And I try to what helps me is to try to keep this in mind is everyone has a story, pretty much everyone has gone through trauma of some kind. And we're not comparing traumas,
it's all relative.
Because it hits your nervous system the same way, right? And everyone sees things through their own lens and belief system, right? It comes back to that from their own trauma. So it's there's so many opportunities for misunderstanding, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And
I'm really sorry that happened to you as well. And I do believe that everyone has experienced trauma in some way. And I can remember being in a support group for men that had been abused and hearing other people's stories and going, oh gosh, my story is not that. That is absolutely horrible. And then having the moderator, the facilitator of the group say, your experience is your experience. It's just as valid. Do not compare your trauma to someone else's trauma, because you are healing, they are healing, and your experience is relative and valid to you. Don't diminish your trauma by comparing it to someone else's. You have your own journey and your own healing, which that was exceedingly helpful. So I'm sorry that has happened, and at the same time, the people that you and I are today, and we're awake, and that is part of our makeup that has allowed us to be who we are today, or in our own response to that, to be who we are today. And a pastor friend of mine, when I was going through the breakup of my 20-year relationship, said to me, you will cross this bridge and you will be on the other side. And when you're on the other side, you will extend your hand to help someone else.
Beautiful.
That's what it's about. Libazat, I have had the great good fortune to meet so many wonderful souls who are that light. So I may have met some not so wonderful souls, people who were afraid, or people who wanted to be in control and could be abusive emotionally or physically. But then that hasn't been my life. There have been people that have absolutely just shed nothing but light and love. And I am able to create more of those people because now I'm clear in my intention that these are the people. I would like people who who have their artistic integrity as a creator, as a performer. I would like people who share the values of compassion and integrity and truth and caring and wanting to make a difference and wanting to make a contribution. And you and I, we just met, but we're in the tribe. We're in the same tribe. It just took us a little while to find each other.
Totally. And that's so beautiful. I love what that pastor, I think you said he was, said to you. And it's exactly that. Like whenever someone says, like, I'm so sorry for what you went through, without putting the and or the but that you did, I'm always like, I'm not. Like I now I get to help people so that they don't have to suffer for decades like I did. And I've forgiven all those people. I've forgiven. Yeah, I was disowned by my family after it, but I forgave all them.
Yeah. Every once in a while, it comes back for me. Even if I've forgiven it, it comes back.
Yeah.
But there was something you said. I just had it and just went out of my mind.
I said we get to help people so they don't have to suffer like we did.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can't. No,
That's okay. It'll come back when it's the moment.
But that idea that your experience is shared, and your willingness to share the experience to help other people recognize that they too can heal, that they too can emerge stronger, wiser, and that they too can give back and help other people, so that you don't think that's something that happened in vain. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So I think people that say I'm sorry and get to that point, I think they want to love you. They want to help. It's like people say the dumbest things when someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And really what they want to say is, I love you and I want to help. I don't know how, I don't know what to say, but I feel for you. And so what comes out instead is, well, now they're not suffering and they're in a better place. And it's like a really dumb thing to say to someone who's had a loss. So I was a grief counselor for 6 years, so I've seen it all. And what I always say to myself is, these people, they want to be like all the, I said when we were talking before we started that, my home was under threat from the Eaton fire, and that I had friends who had lost things, their entire homes. And you know what my response to them was? I'm here for you, and a heart. And I texted that heart every day to let them know that I was thinking of them. There was nothing that I thought I could say to provide comfort. But my way of providing comfort is, I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to let you know I'm here for you, and I will be here for you. And when the news moves on and everybody else moves on, I will still be here for you, and a heart. And that was it, because I care, but I know anything that I could say, what could I possibly say to someone who has lost everything? Oh, you'll be okay. Oh, I've been there. You'll be fine. It's even worse. I know you're strong and you will get through this. It's like, I take that and I go, what they're really saying is, I want to be there for you. I love you. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help you. So when people say, I'm sorry that happened to you, what I hear is, I'd love to give you a hug right now. I am sorry that you suffered, and I just want to love you. That's what I take from that.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, you're totally right. Like, people just don't know what to say, so they say kind of like what they think they should say.
Well, and if they've not experienced a loss, then it's very challenging, I think, to have compassion for something that has never happened to you. So, I mean, I have friends who have their parents, and both my parents are gone. And some of the things that were said were not the wisest things in the world, but I got it. You haven't experienced this kind of loss. And in my mind, I'm going, but when you do, I will be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I just lost my dad like 2 years ago, and I remember, like, you know how like anger is one of the stages? Like I was just in anger at first, and it was like I don't want anyone to fucking tell me they're sorry for my loss. But it was like my own thing. But I think that ties back to what we were talking about, where it's like everyone's reaction comes from like their own stuff, right? Like they're not out there like trying to hurt you or trying to insult you or trying to do anything. Like they're just coming from their own belief system, their own fear, their own pain, their own lens. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's that, it's the old Shakespeare, if you prick me, do I not bleed? We're all human. And I always hate to use the word we're this, we're that. I try to do my best to speak from my own experience, but we are all, I think, given the circumstances of our own lives, probably doing the best we can to survive. And a lot of us might not know that there's a difference between surviving and thriving. Beautiful. And being able to dig in. And I think there's so many resources for mental health today that, well, I'm telling you, when I was a teenager, those things weren't there, and it's that willingness on my part to accept help that's been really challenging. And to say, I need help with this, or I just, boy, I remember a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, had died, and it was so devastating. And I went over to another friend's house, and when she opened, when she opened the door and opened her arms, my knees went out from underneath me. I literally collapsed in grief at the front door. And you know what she said? I've got you. And in that moment, to know that someone else just said, I've got you, it was incredible. I'll never forget that moment. I've got you. Yeah.
Well, you just made me tear up. So
yeah,
that's like a really beautiful moment.
Talked about that ever. You know that? Aww. I've never talked about that.
Yeah, I think
I can say this because I'm sure she would be okay with it. This was Eve Plum of the Brady Bunch, very good friend of mine for many years. We were roommates, and that's who it was. I went over and knocked on her door and collapsed, and she said, I've got you. Yeah, meant a lot. I think that she was there for me. It was great.
I think that goes back to like what you were saying, where it's like we all just want to be loved, and the people who care about us just want to give us love. And she knew how to just be there for you in that moment. That's such a beautiful moment that you shared.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you had her.
I better call her and thank her for that.
Wait, who was she on the Brady Bunch?
Jan.
Jan, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
An amazing moment. Thank you for calling that memory up.
We were talking before the show, like nothing is planned out, and I don't know, just some of these conversations just go in such beautiful places that I would have never imagined they would have gone. And I think it's like you were talking about how like you have that gift, like you don't want to waste it. It's like this idea that like this is kind of coming through us and channeling through us, and someone out there is listening because they needed to hear that, right?
I don't take anything for granted. I just think, everything in some respect is meant to be that. One of the things I try to remind myself is that acceptance, it is what it is. I may try to interpret it a million different ways, but it is what it is. And acceptance has been also very challenging for me. Even the things I find unacceptable. So my way of handling that is, well, I may find this unacceptable, but I am willing to accept it. Even if I think I can't, I just state, I am willing to accept this. Just to open a space a little bit.
How do you navigate between acceptance and also this idea of like creating the reality that you want? Like, how do you move through that space?
I think acceptance is empowering, because once I've accepted it, then I might be able to do something about it. And I did this, you know, I'm not the biggest person on social media. It's a challenge for me to do it, not because I'm the age I am, just because it takes time and it takes effort, and you know. But right after the election, I did this video and I said, so if something hasn't turned out the way you wanted it to turn out, 1, have your feelings. 2, accept it. You're not going to change it. It is what it is. Accept it. 3, ask yourself how you can participate, how you can make a difference, where you can apply your gifts and your abilities. And because once there is that acceptance, I think it's incredibly empowering. And yes, I might set out to create a reality, and I might get a different result. But I have to accept that result, learn from that result, and decide what positive thing I can take away from that result, and then move forward. That's kind of how I run it.
I think that's great. I think it's that idea of like, there's always something to learn and grow from in any heartbreak or tragedy or challenge or adversity that we go through.
The end of my 20-year relationship, I now refer to it as the best, worst thing that ever happened to me.
Because you met your partner, you wouldn't have met your partner that you're with today, right?
That would be correct. But also there was such accelerated growth through the 3 years following that kind of forced me to reevaluate what my life was about, what I was going to do with my life. It was almost like I was in a daze for the last 10 years of that relationship and just going through the motions of life. And I had larger things to do. And here I was distracted from doing those larger things. As painful as it was, because everything crashed down at once. I mean, my mother had passed away. I had to put 2 dogs down. I lost my business at the time. Then the relationship ended. It was just like one thing after the other. Astrologically speaking, it was a Saturn return.
Yeah, dark night of the soul.
Oh boy, talk about it. Was dark. I mean, it was really dark. Even I say, well, even in the darkest times, you are the light. I couldn't even see my own light. So walking through that, just the word resilience so characterizes that whole period. It's like, yes, I'm going to get up. I had a favorite aunt, and she had lost her husband when my cousins were young teenagers. Then she married again. He passed away. No. Then she married again. Then her son died. Then her husband passed away. Then her daughter passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And then her final partner that she was with was dying. And I called her, and I was just a massive emotion. I couldn't stop crying. I said, I don't know how to do this. And I said, I never saw you when my uncle died. I said, you were so strong. And she said, honey, there were plenty of nights that I cried myself to sleep, but I had to be strong for my kids. But how you do this is you get up in the morning and you put one foot in front of the other because you have no choice. If you want to be alive, you gotta put one foot in front of the other. Now, a very good friend of mine who lost his house in the Eaton fire, I ran into him at the gym, and he said to me, everyone's looking to blame someone. I can't do that. I can't waste my energy being angry. He said, what I know I have to do is just take one day at a time and put one foot in front of the other and decide what to do in those moments. And I thought, that's my aunt. That's the same thing. It's a great philosophy. And then he went to his locker and he pulled out and he said, and look, I have new sneakers. I thought, this guy, he's going to be fine. It's not like he's not going to have his difficult moments and his hard times, but his heart knows that he is going to keep going, and he's going to make the best of it. I know that this is an incredibly humbling experience for him and his family, but I can see his resilience. And I think we all have that, but it's pretty challenging to have resilience when you don't have compassion. So when you have compassion for people's losses, that empowers their resilience. At least that's what I believe.
So when you don't have compassion coming at you, it's hard to have resilience. Like it's,
and I think if you pretend you don't need compassion, then it's hard to have resilience.
Right. I mean, that just speaks to the importance of like community and having people in your life who love you and believe in you and are there for you,
and even strangers, the people that turned out to help after the fires because they cared, because they wanted to contribute, because they were strangers. And there were a million stories, still are, of strangers helping or taking people in or cooking or bringing them clothing, or, just people recognizing that people needed help and compassion and providing that. That's what makes a community resilient. Even if you don't know one another, to come together to make that difference, it's exceedingly powerful. And I don't mean to be, Kris, all Pollyanna about all of this.
No, you're like making me cry again.
But it's tough stuff. It's tough stuff to be vulnerable, because in order to receive, I've got to be vulnerable. I've got to admit I need help. I can remember another time where I was going through something really, really rough, and a friend of mine said, "How are you doing?" And I said, I'm fine. And they looked at me. And I said, "No, really, I'm fine." And they looked at me. They just stood there and looked at me. And I said, "Okay, I'm not fine. I need this. I'm not. Okay, I'm not fine."
That's a good friend.
Yeah. Just
to like really see you in that moment.
Like, I know that you're not fine, but I'll wait till you figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. They really saw you in the moment. That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, you're just like making me think of like the beautiful parts of humanity, like communities and people rallying for each other. And
I got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many messages I got on Facebook over that week. And what I decided what I could do was I did 5 days worth of briefing. Like, here's what happened today. Here's what's happening today. And, and just wrote the story of what was happening. And people's response, it was really amazing. I have friends, I've traveled so much for work. I have friends all over the world, and everyone asking what could they do. It was just, the outpouring was amazing. And I try and remember that on days where I'm feeling alone and isolated or lonely, or that no one gets me or understands me. I'm like, you need to remember this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, yeah, you're making me think of like moments. There's been a couple moments where like, really horrible things have happened. And like, I'll update social media about it, and it's like people come out of the woodwork, right? Like my, when COVID happened, I don't know if you remember, that boat was, docked off the shore of Oakland. They wouldn't let them on. My parents were on that boat.
Oh.
And they were like, so it's two of the first cases, and they were flown to San Diego, and like people to a military base, and people with hazmat suits and like quarantine. But like, and I posted about that, and it was like the people like pouring out of the woodwork. It's like, I didn't even know you were active on social media anymore. Yeah, that was like one of those moments for me. And yeah, it's that same feeling. It's like, okay, people actually do care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they want to be cared for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you wanted a freewheeling discussion. We certainly.
I know. I was just saying that. I was like, wow, this went in such a beautiful way. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Thank you for just coming on here and being real and pouring your heart out, and just, just being your authentic self. And I'm sure people want to know where they can connect with you, how they can connect with you. Are you coaching one-on-one these days? Like, are you giving readings? What are you doing?
I only do 5 people at a time.
For coaching.
Yeah, the way the coaching, and there's room, and there's a waiting list, but it's fine. The way the coaching works is it's actually, some people can make the decision to go beyond 5 sessions, but it's actually 5 sessions over 10 weeks. And I ask you, the first thing you get to do is you get to fill out a questionnaire. It's like 68 questions. But those questions, the way you answer those questions allows me to tune in intuitively to what is really going on. So, for example, I'll plug her book if I have it. I had one client who, and it's sometimes people in transition, or sometimes people who have a dream or intention, want to do something, or they're dealing with something rough. So what we do in the coaching sessions is, it's kind of like the workbook, except that it's deeper and you get me. we play and I use my intuition. But I had this client, and she was forced to retire, and she didn't know what she was going to do next. And she was an international executive, banking executive. And we were just talking, and I was asking questions and looking at the way she answered her questions. And she said, well, I have this little thing that I've done. I did the Japanese island of Shikoku, and I toured the 88 Buddhist temples in 8 days. And so I did this little PDF for my friends and family. And I said, oh, and something went off in my mind. I was like, this is something. This is a signal. And so I said, oh, can you send it to me? And I said, do you realize what an incredibly beautiful writer you are? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I think, this is me saying to her, I think that this is a book. No. It's just a little something I'm doing for my friends. I said, there is a story here, and there are your revelations, and there are you sharing your wisdom and your experience. And I said, there's a book here. And so we went forward, and I, as a writer myself, I'm able to coach authors and writers as well. And this was the result.
That's awesome. What a beautiful cover, too.
By Yvonne Corpuz. The cover is illustrated by one of her friends that was did the tour with her. Her friend.
That's an illustration? I thought it was a photograph. Wow.
No.
Beautiful.
And it's Shikoku Wisdom for the Wayfarer, and it's by Yvonne Corpuz. And it's just so beautifully written, and it has black and white and color illustrations. And that was a perfect example. That's me trying to use my intuition, or actually using my intuition to see what is actually going on. We explore what your purpose is. We explore the barriers. We explore it is for people who are at an inflection point in their life, or they're looking to make sense of something and order it. So that program, the initial sessions are 5, and you can learn more about that if you go to wholelifebook.com and you click on the link at the top, Whole Life Works. That's where the coaching program is. If you just want a reading, I'm still doing those. Longer waiting list for that. But all you have to do is email me, or you can email me at briansethhurst@hotmail.com. I always say to people, just tell me the length of the session you want and your time zone, and I will get back to you with more information on it. I've been doing that. I can do that in my sleep. I've been doing readings for so long. It's energizing for me. So it doesn't take anything from me. It just comes right through. And then for the books, at that same place, wholelifebook.com, the links to buy the book, and I always have them standing by, the links to buy the book, the links to buy the workbook, they're all there, as well as the audiobook. I've been told by some readers that they listen to the audiobook, they listen to a chapter of the audiobook, and then they do the workbook instead of reading the book and then doing the workbook. And then, Kris, talk about following signals. I was at the gym and I was thinking, isn't it so much easier to work out at the gym or to take a class when other people are around you rather than trying to do this on your own in your house? And so that has led me to an experiment now with volunteers of creating these whole workbook roundtables. And so I'm probably going to be announcing that towards the beginning of the summer, because the people who have participated, it's actually really great. I've been moderating the group, but we're training all the people who are the volunteers to actually moderate the group to help people share their experience of the workbook and get help, get support, and actually be held accountable to do the work. And that's turning out really well. So just everything you need to know, the socials, everything is at wholelifebook.com. And if you're on Facebook, there's a user group there called facebook.com/hold-the-book, which I think you can get to from the Whole Life Book website as well. So there's the commercial, but I really believe very strongly that the book and the workbook have made a difference, because people tell me that they've made a difference, and I would like to believe that that's true, and I would like to believe that it fosters an authentic connection that inspires, so that the book is on purpose too.
I am sure it's making a difference, and I know you're making a difference. So thank you again for being here. If you are listening and this resonated and you think there's someone who it would resonate with, please send it to them. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Let's help lift humanity up. All of Brian's links are going to be in the show notes as well. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.